Kia ora, everybody. Welcome back to the Careering Podcast. I am always your host, Kelsey. Well, not always, but like, you know what I mean. And we are here with the founder and creator of Careering 9, Melissa Davies. Ciao.
Ni hao.
Oh, very nice. What is going on with you this week? How are you?
I am very good.
I am. All right, darling.
Well, it's kind of aligned with my theme, actually, or kind of what my vibe is this week.
What's going on?
I feel like everyone's just playing catch up with the country music vibe. Like, I've been on this train for over a decade and everyone else is catching up. So thanks, everyone. Glad you're here.
I have heard you say this so many times at this point. I'm like, yes, Melissa, you invented country music.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but I was certainly fan number 3.
You definitely were fan number 3.
I'm also that old.
Yeah. Well, I'm now into it. I feel like I got bought in a little, definitely later, but like earlier than most others.
Correct.
Because of you.
Yeah.
And because of CMC Rocks, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
And also my theme this week is that you can't be what you can't see, and about representation of different types of humans in media, and whether that's TV or film or music or whatever, and how wonderful it is that there is such a heavy female representation in CMC Rocks, the festival that we're at.
And even just that the award winners for CMC and the Grammys this year,
Yes.
sorry, not CMAs, not CMC, the CMAs and the Grammys this year was really strongly female.
Yeah, and even like Oscar noms, all that sort of stuff. Like when you see that sort of stuff around women being desperately left out, or one token female being put in, it makes me mad. And, you know, it's really important that we show the next generation what the real world actually looks like, not just what men want it to be. I love that you're just looking at me like, oh God, she's going to get on the patriarchy
I'm like,
soapbox
this
again.
might be a new record, like to introduce fuck the patriarchy within the first 3 minutes.
I'm just, you know, look, it is very, very fucking important to me. I saw this beautiful video. Yes, it was a TikTok.
I like that you tried to label it a video.
It was a video.
I mean, yeah, true, it was, but you're like,
but it was a TikTok.
oh, on TikTok.
And it doesn't make it any less relevant, of two young girls at I think it was like the MTV Movie Awards or one of those award shows. And they had Margot Robbie and they had all these different women who were in the Barbie movie walking the red carpet being interviewed by these 2 little black girls. And they were so sassy. And every time they saw one of the girls, they were like, hey, Barbie. And then one of them was like, what Barbie are you going to be? And she was like, I'm going to be presidential Barbie, of course. And I'm just like, this is important. This is really fucking important. And it might seem silly to people, but these 2 little girls have grown up in a time where they can see the possibilities of all that they can be. And they have taken that on board and they are interviewing these amazing women on a red carpet. And that's my soapbox today. Representation. You can't be what you can't see.
Oh, I love that. But it's amazing how it doesn't always have to be at that level as well. It can be just in your own community.
100%.
Yeah.
Like role models around you, women around you, your mothers, your grandmothers, all the rest of it. Like be the person that you want the next generation to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will never forget a conversation I had with one of my nieces when she was about 7 or 8, and she was saying to me, so who's your boss? And I was like, I'm my boss. She's like, you're a boss?
Fuck yeah, I am.
And I was like, yeah, need a pay rise, need to talk to the boss about it. She was really like incredulous that in her world, up until that point, she hadn't actually met any women that were bosses because she wasn't exposed to that in the media. So the media kind of had informed her view. And I don't normally talk to, I don't know, kids under 8 about career stuff. But,
and who your boss is.
yeah, and who my boss is. And I think too with my nieces and nephews, when I'm with them, I always try and shuffle my work so I'm really present when I'm with them, so they're not seeing me being distracted and what have you. I think for a long time they didn't think I even had a job, because when I'm hanging out with them, I'm just hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And it could be a Tuesday afternoon. What they don't see is I've been up since 4:30 to get the work done
and worked Saturday and Sunday, etc. Yeah.
And I don't want them to see that, because I just want them to know that Auntie Liz is cool and is present.
And yeah.
But it reminded me that maybe I'd gone too far on that narrative and not introduced the concept that the reason I can do that is because I've been self-employed and I've got flexibility and that I am
you
my own
made
boss.
that choice.
Yeah. And so, it was a fascinating conversation around, it made me realize representation close to home has impact as well.
So important. Yeah. Or across the board. Representation everywhere is really important.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my soapbox this week.
Nice. It would be a good topic for us to talk about. However, we are going to talk about switching things up career-wise. So I'm interested, Kels, in your view about what you think about changing careers generally. Good, bad, ugly experiences. What do you think?
Fuck it. Go for it. If it fits, why not? Like, Melissa's making a terrible face at me, and I didn't mean it that way at all. I think, like, if you want to try something different, if you want to do something different, go for it. I think it's really important that we have the opportunity to mix things up and change things up. And, like, I think you were saying in some other conversation that we were having that, like, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, whatever, now have, like, an average of 30, are expected to have 37 different careers in their lifetime. Like,
I actually think that was millennials.
Millennials?
Yeah, okay.
Fuck, I'm way behind.
Yeah, you need to like zig and zag and zig and
I
zag.
need to do a lot more zigzagging. But I think, yeah, absolutely. Fucking go for it. The world is your oyster and time is short. So fuck, why not?
What do you think gets in the way for people?
Stability and security.
Yeah.
I think financial security is a huge one for a lot of people. I also think ego. You've spent heaps and heaps of time building up the kudos within a certain field or in a certain role or whatever, and then, you know, it might not be serving you anymore and you decide that you need to change it, but your ego won't let you because it means that you have to start at the bottom again. Yeah.
Yeah, so letting go of everything you know and your identity and ego are attached to the position that you've earned.
Yeah.
And then you take a sideways shift into a new industry and you might be starting at the
bottom of the rung again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, you know, leaving something, say you're a CEO or you're a high, sort of sitting in the C-suite or something, and then you go, fuck it, I need to leave for well-being reasons or whatever, and then the conversation and the answer to, so what are you doing now? Because it's such an important part of your story, right? Well, not an important part, it's a key part of what you get asked when you go somewhere and you're networking. And just, I think our egos don't let us go, nothing and it's great. Or I don't know yet. I think we should get more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I agree. Because otherwise, if we aren't comfortable ourselves, then we have expectations when we ask the question of others too.
Exactly.
And we make sort of this little judgment around it.
Yeah.
When I quit my job and went to Jamaica, and which is still one of my favourite parts of my career, and then came back here to Otatahi and was just volunteering for a while. It was almost like I got cred from people because I said I was volunteering. Whereas if I'd said I'm unemployed, it would have come across really differently.
Yeah, if you'd gone, don't know, chucked it all in, went to Jamaica for a while, and now I'm back here because I didn't know. I was like, probably should come home for a bit.
Yeah, might hang out with the fam for a bit.
Very different story.
Yeah, but I think too, I mean, at the time, my motivation was to contribute to Christchurch. That very much was part of the why.
Yeah.
But if I just said nothing,
Yeah.
what are you doing now? Nothing.
Everyone's like, but what do you mean nothing?
Yeah, like I'm keeping busy, but I don't have a job.
Yeah. And everyone goes, she has way too much money in the bank.
Which was not true.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of anticipation of judgment and ego that stops us from making that shift, and financial security as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too when you think about financial stability. One thing it's had more of an impact on women in the workforce than men has been the global pandemic, because where females are overrepresented in frontline roles like customer service or retail and things like that. And so the impact on those roles, so in a household, a 2-adult household, that role is often the lower paying of the two roles. And so it's the one that's seen as being the one that could be sacrificed to have that adult at home looking after children, or when you're working from home, you can't do those jobs from home, or those industries actually were the ones that really struggled in terms of being negatively impacted by the pandemic. And there's some research from the Bureau of Labour Statistics which looks at adults across US, Canada, UK, Mexico and India, and that shows that in the labour force job losses since February 2020, there are 1 million fewer women in the workforce in January 2022 compared to February 2020, and men have recovered those job losses over that same time horizon. But
wow.
Yeah. So if you think about elder care, child care, the types of jobs, etc., so that financial impact has been more felt by women than men as a result of the pandemic as well.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think when you see that, if you understand that women are more vulnerable to job losses or industry changes, then that puts more perceived risk around, financial stability and things like that. So you're less likely to take a leap and try something else. It kind of almost brings back the kind of post-war boomer mentality of get a job for life.
And stay in there for 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because people are scared because the global economy is unstable. So
whereas I don't know anybody like my age that has stayed in their role for like more than 5 years at this point.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Do I know anyone that's been in their job for 5 years?
Because to me, like, it's just a given. I'm going to change career and I'm going to change pathways and I'm going to just go and do it. And it's not like it's just going to happen to me in my life.
Yeah.
Whereas that mentality didn't exist. Like I think about, we interviewed my mum and she walked up one side of the street and down the other, got a job in the clothing and is still there now.
Yeah.
And so like her generation, that was what it was. But she's like shifted and done different things within that and sort of grown and moved. Whereas I'm like, I fucking know at some point I'm going to like throw it all in and go and like be an alpaca farmer or something. You know what I mean? Like
no, a llama farmer.
A llama farmer. Oh, I missed that so badly. Sorry.
I did used to tell my family that if I won lotto, the reason they would know is I'd be living somewhere remote and I'd be a llama farmer.
They're just so cute. Fair enough. But yeah, like I feel like to me it's just a given.
Yeah.
That's the world that I'm going to work in. And I think there are big career changes and then there are just pivots that that just kind of happen to you as well. Like it's not necessarily something that you anticipate. You just kind of take the opportunity when it happens.
Yeah, and I think changing jobs but within the same career lane is less risky than a complete career change. So when I think about career change, I think about one industry to another, one set of professional skills and
going from working in an office to driving a truck.
Yeah. I think about those kind of moments and I sort of reflect on my career, and that pivotal shift for me was sort of 15 years in industrial engineering and then meeting an executive recruiter after being made redundant, and she was like, actually I think you'd be amazing over here. Not an industry that I'd ever considered, so I was publishing, media and technology. And then I kind of went in there and absolutely loved it. But I didn't intentionally choose that, but I'd always had a view that I would have several chunks of career. I'd never thought, because I'm not very good at doing the same thing forever. I'd always just really challenge this notion that you go to university or you get a job and then you do that one thing for the rest of your working life. I was like, why do I have to do the same thing for 45 years? I don't want to. You can't make me. Like, I'm not going to be the same person at 30 that I am at 17, that I am at 55. So
100%.
Yeah. And so, but our whole system around higher education into workforce.
Yeah.
You think back to our time in, regional economic development, there was workforce planning, which assumes a normalised behaviour of a population based on accessing education and certain jobs being available. And the rationale was you could map the tertiary institutions to suit the industry needs. And I'm like, if only humans were that rational.
Whereas like when I studied, half my class was adult students. So for me, I'm just like you talk about going, no, I don't want to do it. Like you're arcing up against it, like your rebel self, which is just what you do.
Yes.
Whereas for me, just not even in my mindset. Like if I need to go back to school, I can go back to school.
Yeah.
Like I just have grown up in this space, in a headspace, and it might just be me. But like, I think also my dad, he lost his job at like 40 and his whole world changed. Everything changed for our whole family. He went back to school and did his whole BCom and changed his whole entire life and now works at a university. Like it's not, I think I've seen it happen so much that things just are going to happen and you've got no fucking control of it and you're going to have a career change at some point anyway. I think that's kind of my bias.
Yeah, I'm probably quite similar because I think, I've had jobs since I was 12 and I always just go, if the worst comes to worst, I'll go back to spud picking or manual jobs that I used to do when I was a kid. I have no objection to doing what it takes to earn
money.
To earn money to support the lifestyle that I want to live, and at times that's going to change because it's all out of my control anyway. Well, I mean, it's a bit different now that I am my own boss, but arguably that's still all out of my control.
Still could change at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Right? I think back to, there's so many different moments in our lives where things happen to us that have been out of our control, but they have so much of an impact on everything around us in our lives. And whether that's the loss of a loved one, whether that's a force to change jobs or cities or whatever, like when I had my accident and hurt my leg, I was supposed to be in Australia. Like my whole trajectory of life changed and I ended up in China instead. But you look at those moments and you go, oh, well, I had no control, but like I still took the change and I took what needed to happen when it happened. And I just kind of assume that just happens in your career.
It can be really intentional too though. Like,
yeah.
I think about a friend of mine in Sydney. She had been previously an IT consultant into government agencies. So from the UK originally, I think maths and physics major, like super brain box, and had been working in consulting into government, doing kind of procurement projects, and then took a pivot to really lean into the IT space and ended up like head of IT for Macquarie Bank.
Amazing.
Yeah, incredible. But if you'd gone to someone in Macquarie Bank and said, how do I get a role as a senior leader in your IT division?
Not that way.
No one would have said that, right? So I think some of the limitations around sort of the intentional career change is so many of the narratives around people changing career lanes has come from opportunity.
Yeah.
Sometimes misfortune, disadvantage, having, get back against the wall and going, I just need a job. Like what's out there? And so yes, I think there's real merit in being intentional about trying to craft a shift into a new career lane. But all of the fun stories I hear are usually the ones that have done a little bit of chaos has happened in life and people have had to be like, sink or swim. Like,
yeah, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
Or I think the other one that I've heard of with a few people is as they've grown older, a change in values.
Yeah.
And the work not reflecting those values anymore.
Or the confidence to live their values.
Exactly. You're just kind of growing up and going, actually, this doesn't fit me anymore. This is not what I want. And it being really important to them to shift. Like I have a couple of friends who were working in accounting or legal or sort of more of the professional services area and then went, fuck it, I'm going to go and teach kindergartners. And retrained and went that way because it aligned far more with their value set. And I love that. I love that people take that confidence and do that work. On the other side of that, I don't think there's anything wrong if you want to stay in something for 25 years. Like you do you, choose your life that you want to live, go for it. Could never be me, but do what you want to do in that space. I do think there is value in change in your career, whether it is intentional or unintentional. I think there is a lot of value in it.
Oh, so when are you going to change careers? You've kind of been in the marketing lane for a while now, guys.
Well, I do think that I did have a bit of a pivot within the world the trajectory that I was on, because I was quite client side, I was marketing, and I was digital channels, I was social media, I was websites, I was all of that stuff. And then I flicked and went into agency world and did the project management and learned everything from brand all the way through to delivery of a brochure. So learned so much in that space. And now I'm pivoted into a space where I'm still in the marketing industry, but I'm in the tech industry, but I'm also not in a delivery role of that marketing stuff either, which is quite nice. And so I feel like also my little foray over in the side to teaching professional communications in China, and then when I was laid up with my leg and running fundraising campaigns for charities, and I feel like I've done a lot of different things already that have all sort of coincided with each other. But I feel like the change that I've done has been spread wide rather than jumping from lane to lane.
So the skill base that you've built has got broader as your roles have changed, which means you're in a much better position to navigate what next because you've got this broad, stable base to choose from.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, when we talk about career change, it doesn't have to be jump from one lane in the highway to the next. It can actually be, I'm going to take up the whole fucking road and learn all these things broadly and then be able to apply it to lots of different industries. And that's probably where I feel like I've got the most value out of shifting organisations, is that I've learnt a lot of different things.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think what's interesting for me is you've taken a step into a role that a lot of women often only get later in the career, if at all, especially in the marketing lane, which is P&L responsibility. So one of the big barriers to executive leadership positions in organisations is often because there's a gender bias in typically people and culture / HR roles and marketing roles, yet there's only one or two roles within those functions that have financial responsibilities. Yeah. And so what happens is if women are ambitious about moving into a senior executive role, part of the skill base that's often missing is financial. Yeah. And you can have financial know-how, you could be a financial whiz, but in a business sense, unless you've had to ride through a few business cycles,
application of finances for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the skill base that once you've got that in a corporate role, it gives you the freedom to jump career lanes, because once you've run the business side in, say, a marketing firm, you could jump into architecture, into a not-for-profit, and you've got the skill base that's really broad. Whereas if you just stayed in marketing doing digital strategy or social media, yes, those skills are transferable, but in terms of your bandwidth and what you could do and how you could actually be strategically significant in that organization, you're pretty limited because those are delivery skills. So I think that kind of thinking around broadening a base even within one industry. So a bit facetious when I was like, marketing, I'm like, but from an external viewpoint, it could be seen that
it definitely looks like I've just stayed in a marketing lane, right?
Yeah,
because I've gone from digital marketing assistant to digital marketing to content marketer and then into agency as an account manager, and primarily doing a lot of marketing work in that space, but definitely more of a broad end-to-end spectrum. Then jumping over to teaching, there's a little side project, and then back into the marketing side and campaign marketing, and then back into agency land. And all of it is in the same realm, but all of those roles were very fucking different within each of them. And I learned so many different things in each of them, where I feel like now I'm on a pathway and I have a skill set that I've got a broader context of how business operates to be able to switch industries. And it might not be a career change, it might be an industry change, whereas I've stayed in the industry and had a skill change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think one of the risks are if people are looking at their own careers, they could be tempted to kind of be like, oh, well, I've been in marketing for 15 years or I've been in logistics for 15 years. Have a really good look at the conversation we've just had around looking at the skills that you've added into the mix and making sure that your view of your capability has grown as in line with the work, because your work will have changed. How you spend your time will have changed.
Absolutely.
And so even if your job title has stayed the same, I guarantee you're doing more things now or using different technologies or different ways of working. And so getting a really solid view of all of the skills that you've got, that you've built up over that time in that lane, because so many of those will be transferable to other environments.
And I think that's such a big issue for women going for the big career changes, is that we go, well, no, I'm in this lane and I know marketing, I don't know architecture, or I know marketing, I don't know how to drive a truck. We go, oh, well, we don't have the skills because that's what we've done, rather than going, actually, I have critical analysis, I have project management skills, I can learn the technical aspect really quickly because I pick up programs left, right, and centre. There's so many transferable skills that we just discount ourselves because the label doesn't match the other label. Mm-hmm. And it's fucked up and we shouldn't do it that way.
Yeah, and I think there's a really good opportunity to reflect on your own personal brand. So reflect on how you've labeled yourself, how people around you label you, and really inspect it and be like, actually, if I'm wanting to jump into this different space, like what if you wanted to set up your own landscaping business? You know, there's probably, to Kelsey's point, you might be, if you had been in, say, a marketing role, you might be incredible at pulling a team together to do projects, like your ability to influence others, work with others.
Yeah.
That's an amazingly valuable skill.
Transferable skill set, right?
Yeah.
Like what I love, so I think you've mentioned it before on the podcast, is when you've been recruiting people in the past, you get the one or twos that are like, yep, they've done that role before and they're just moving companies. But then you always ask the recruiter to give you the wild card. And it's usually the wild card that you hire because you're like, oh, I can see the extra skill set and benefit to the business to bring you into that space. And I think for listeners and for anyone looking at a career change or thinking, oh, I actually would like to try that over there, it is really important to not discount yourself and just be the wild card. Mm-hmm. Throw yourself into it and be the wild card. Apply for that job.
Yeah, and write your CV to reflect that.
Yeah.
So if I think about one role in particular, the role I was hiring for was business investment manager. So it was to work internationally, trying to help businesses relocate or bring investment into the region. And the person I hired had previously been a general manager for a clothing company, because I knew that for someone to have been successful in that industry where they were doing sourcing and buying from overseas, they had worked across multiple geographies, multiple time zones, different cultures. There was a whole lot of, like, I already knew that a lot of what they had was transferable, and they positioned themselves that way as well.
Yeah.
And so I think it meant as someone in the hiring seat, I didn't have to work very hard to see how they could be successful in this role. So I think that little bit of effort around, if there's a lane you want to jump into, or you want to pivot away from where you are currently to something else, think about the ideal environment you want to be in, the skills that you've built up over time, really showcase the skills. Like you can do work history CVs or you can do skills-based CVs. And I think here in Aotearoa, we default to work-based CVs where we just go, here's my job, here's what I did, here's my previous job, here's what I did. What you can also do is change that format and lead with, here are the strengths I bring to any role, here's how I've used them over the last decade, here's how I'd like to use them into the future, and really show the skills that you bring rather than being, here's just a long list of places I've been and job titles I've had.
I also think it shows a level of critical thinking and intuition and just a next level of ability to show up in that way in a CV as well. If people show up that way, I'm like, oh, you get it. Good. Let's go. Like, high performer.
Yeah. And someone who's able to really take ownership of their career.
Yeah.
Rather than, don't get me wrong, I think there's a time and a place for a standard CV, but if you're really wanting to get others to notice you because you look different to the traditional applicant, just commit to looking different.
Yeah. Be the wild card.
Yeah.
Be the wild card.
Yeah.
So just wrapping this up, this conversation is a part of a wider sort of series that we're going to start doing. And what we really want to do is start talking to people about their career pivot points or their career changes and how people have got to where they've got to and the journey that they've been on, because I think we can get really stuck in our must-do job. I did marketing degree, must-do marketing job, And I think a lot of, for new grads coming out, for people that are 30 years into their career and are fucking over it, all of those things, I think it's really important to hear other people's stories of change and how they changed and what a big change looks like versus what a little change looks like and how to get to that decision, and just hearing other people's stories to normalize the pathway. It looks different for everybody and the pathway is not linear. And again, coming back to my point at the beginning, you cannot be what you cannot see. So what we want to do is make sure that we're bringing those people in and telling those stories and understanding a wide variety of humans and careers and industries. So coming up, we have some wonderful interviews with people from the film industry. We've got a wonderful interview with our favourite drag queen. So if you've got anyone that has a wonderful story about career pivots, career changes that you think we should highlight and would be good to speak to, please send them our way. We really want to have a conversation and really highlight a wide range of stories across the board. So until then, Again, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, of course, because we don't have any other, we won't take anything else. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And please make sure you like us and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. And as always, get out there and be that fucking wild card.